Shalom, covenant keepers, children of Israel. James here. Just wanted to reach out to you for a moment and talk about an article that I wrote entitled The Desire of a Woman and the Rule of a Man, Understanding Yahweh's Judgment in the Garden. I wrote this article last night while tired and honestly exhausted from a conflict that had arisen in a conversation about this very teaching. During that discussion, I made the statement that the only way a woman can serve God is through her husband. The statement was quickly twisted into, so what you're really saying is, that's how people do that, they put words in your mouth. What you're really saying is that I have to love my husband more than I love God. In the heat of that moment, I responded, well, technically yes and no, because what I was trying to express is something that cannot be understood apart from the covenant and divine order. You cannot love Elohim without submitting to his judgments. And his judgment upon the woman in Genesis 3:16 was that her desire would now be unto her husband, and that he would now rule over her, no longer Yahweh. That statement, if one truly believes that Yahweh is righteous and just, must be accepted as right and true. The woman's original desire was spiritual, towards Elohim, and her source as her source and her ruler. But once sin entered in, her nature was redirected. Her desire was turned toward the man, and her submission was now through him. That was not the curse of sin. It was the righteous judgment of a holy Elohim maintaining the divine order in a fallen world. The tragedy is that modern theology, especially under the influence of this feminist movement and weak appeasing pastors, has twisted this into a meaning that Elohim cursed the woman with a desire to sin against her husband, to usurp his role, and to violate his divine headship. That interpretation, though popular, is blasphemous in reversal. It would make Yahweh the author of rebellion. Let us begin with the text itself. The Hebrew word used for desire here is the Hebrew word teshuka, and it appears only 3 times in the entire Tanakh. Here in Genesis 3:16, again in Genesis 4:7, and finally in the Song of Solomon 7:10. Its root conveys longing, desire, or craving, and in every case, the context defines whether that desire is pure or misplaced. When the woman's teshuka is toward her husband, the context is marital and physical, not rebellious and authoritative. In Song of Solomon 7:10, we read, I am my beloved's, and his desire, his teshuka, is towards me. That verse speaks unmistakably of romantic and physical longing, not dominion. It would be absurd to interpret Solomon's poetry as meaning a wife desires to dominate her husband. Genesis 3:16 is of the same nature. The verse is a pronouncement about the consequences that now attend the physical union of a man and a woman. I will greatly multiply your sorrow and thy conception. In sorrow thou shalt bring forth children, and thy desire shall be unto thy husband, and he shall rule over thee. Every phrase here pertains to the woman's reproductive and relational experience, the body, the womb, the desire, the authority, all now altered by the entrance of sin into creation. To wrench this into a statement about her craving to control is to insert a concept foreign to the text itself. Now let us reason this through with the fear of Elohim. If one claims that he cursed Eve with a desire to rule over her husband, one is claiming that Yahweh cursed her to rebellion, to sin. Scripture says that rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft. So therefore he would be condemning every future woman to be burned at a stake, to be put to death, for we're not to suffer a witch to live. Yet Scripture is clear. Let no man say when he is tempted, I am tempted of Elohim. For Elohim cannot be tempted with evil, neither tempteth he any man. James 1:13. To assign rebellion as part of his curse is to make him the author of sin, which he is not. What he does, rather, is withdraw his covering, his presence, from the disobedient, allowing them to reap the fruit of their own choices. That is judgment, not temptation. Before the fall, the woman's desire, her teshuka, was spiritual. She, like Adam, delighted in the presence of Yahweh, walking with him in the cool of the day. Her longing was upward. But once deception entered and sin corrupted her nature, her longing was redirected. The curse did not introduce sin, it exposed its consequences. Her desire once for the Creator would now be consumed by the creation, by the man of dust whom she came from. Thus her passion would turn from physical, her desire sensual, and her pain multiplied in childbearing. Yet even with this sorrow and with all of this travail, she would still crave union with her husband, still long for the one through whom she would now bear the fruit of her womb. The woman would continue to reach for her husband, despite the pain that childbirth and that such a union would bring. This is not rebellion. It is the nature of the curse. Because her desire was turned toward the physical, Yahweh in his mercy placed her under the rulership of her husband, to protect her, to govern her household, and to maintain order in his creation. That sin had now disordered. It was not tyranny, but correction, not oppression, but preservation. Of divine structure, that is why Numbers 30 declares that if a woman vows a vow unto Yahweh, her husband may disallow it in the day he hears it, and Yahweh himself will honor the husband's word over hers. There is no if he is righteous clause, no condition of worthiness. The authority is absolute because it is not about the man's merit, but about Elohim's structure. I spent years crisscrossing this country, teaching in living rooms and garages and church basements and convention centers, fellowship halls, explaining true covenant relationship. Everywhere I go, though, people struggle to understand this foundational principle because we are so far removed from the reality of biblical covenant. The same confusion that crept into the garden is still alive today. It is why marriages falter, why homes lack spiritual order, and why devotion to Elohim alone feels impossible for many women. This was never about power, but about restoration. The fall shattered divine unity, and Yahweh's judgment in the garden was not punishment meant to degrade the woman, but a divine restructuring of relationship meant to preserve order and holiness in a world now corrupted by sin. The woman was not cursed to sin, but rather placed under authority as an act of mercy and protection. It is not that she must love her husband more than she loves God. Now that would be idolatry. Yet in the context of divine order, I stand by the statement that a woman must love her husband more than she loves God, but only in the sense that she loves God so deeply, so completely, that she refuses to approach him outside the authority structure he himself established. It is not of elevating the man above Yahweh, but exalting Yahweh's wisdom above human emotion and modern ideology. She cannot love God at all if she refuses to submit to her husband's rule, because in doing so, she would be rejecting the very judgment of Yahweh herself. Her devotion, her prayers, even her obedience to the Torah would be empty if they were offered in defiance of his established order. To reject that order is to reject the judge who decreed it. Therefore, her submission to her husband is not merely an act of obedience to a man, but an act of worship towards Yahweh, who set the structure in place. It is the visible sign of inward covenant alignment, the proof she accepts his judgment as righteous and true. This is not loving her husband more than God, but loving God so fully, so completely that she will only approach him through the authority he has appointed. Anything less, anything contrary, is rebellion, however spiritual it may sound. Those who claim Genesis 3:16 was a curse to rebel are manifesting the same spirit that led Eve astray in the first place. It is the whisper of the serpent in the garden, dressed in modern language, telling women they can redefine righteousness, that submission is weakness and equality means sameness. But let's be clear, equality does not mean sameness. Yahweh himself spoke to Moses, Aaron, and Miriam, 3 leaders equal in divine calling, yet each distinctly created, each became unique roles, responsibilities, and authority. They were equal before Elohim, yet no one would confuse their authority or function. Moses was not Aaron. Aaron was not Miriam. Miriam was not Moses. This is the very pinnacle Elohim established in the garden. Men and women are equal in dignity, value, and worth before him, but their roles, responsibilities, and authority are distinct. To conflate equality with sameness is to invite confusion, rebellion, and the very disorder Yahweh sought to prevent through his judgment to the woman. Yahweh's word stands unchanging. Rebellion is never blessed, and divine order is never outdated. True covenant alignment does not erase distinction, it honors it. It is in embracing this structure, this divinely appointed order, that the love of Elohim can be fully realized and his blessings fully experienced. Shalom, covenant keepers, from James at Awaken to Torah Ministries. We'll see you next time. Shalom, shalom.